Tonight, we're going in-depth on sports betting. While there is talk at the state capitol about legalizing sports betting in Oklahoma, there's also talk about protecting athletes being bet on. Last year, the NCAA released a survey that said 1 in 3 student athletes reported abusive and threatening behavior directed towards them because someone lost a bet tied to their performance. Most of the threats were from men's and women's March Madness, but other sports also saw abusive behavior. 18 states and Washington, D.C. now ban specific player bets. Joining me tonight unedited is State Representative Mickey Dollens, who supports legalized sports betting in Oklahoma, but with restrictions to protect student athletes. When did you start to notice that there was a problem with the collegiate athletes when it comes to sports betting?
You know, Rick, I first noticed there was a problem back in 2021. I'll give you a little bit of history on how this came about. So I've actually got a football scholarship to play at Southern Methodist University. They were one of the very first football programs to pay players. They actually were doing so against the law, and they're the only football team to have been given the death penalty. The team was shut down for 2 years. 25 years later, I got a football scholarship, and when I was there on my official visit, one of the former athletes from the 80s told me that he actually took a pay cut going from SMU to the NFL. And of course, back then, NIL was not around. And so I graduated from SMU. I got on the United States Olympic bobsledding team, and I had the opportunity to travel the world. Now, the interesting thing about U.S. Olympians is they're not paid a salary. They are able to profit off their name, image, and likeness, which retains that spirit of amateur athletics within the U.S. Olympians. And so I finished my last race for the Team USA. It was in 2014. Went to the oil fields. I became a teacher, and then I ran for office. And one of the things I wanted to do while running for office was pass name, image, and likeness for collegiate sports so that these athletes could profit off of their talents. Some of them, the height of their popularity, especially in female sports. And so I got with Floor Leader Eccles, and we co-authored the bill together, and it was passed. And then around that same time, the NCAA decided they were just going to let all states do that, all athletes profit off their name, image, and likeness. And it wasn't until 2021 when I was at that very first OU game against Tulane where Spencer Rattler was starting. And one of the very first plays, he threw an interception. And I heard a person behind me say, well, he should have to give those 2 cars back. He ain't worth it. NIL, this is BS. And was really coming down on this 19-year-old kid, this grown adult behind me. And that's when I first kind of realized, wow, laws do have unintended consequences. And if you consider being the QB1 for a program like Oklahoma, but then you add, all this money on top of what they're getting and free cars, that pressure cooker becomes exponentially worse. And so I didn't realize that by passing NIL, that I was going to make this pressure on these kids even that much harder. Now, in the world of collegiate athletes today, you have to have a social media presence. That's part of getting NIL deals. Along with that comes unprecedented access into these athletes' lives that has never been around. I've never had to deal with issues like that. And then in 2018, I believe it was, the U.S. Supreme Court said that online sportsbook betting is now legal. And we saw platforms like FanDuel and DraftKings just blow up. And the amount of money that they've profited, I mean, we see it all the time when watching sports. You see the biggest names in showbiz and athletics, LeBron James, Kevin Hart, promoting DraftKings. They got people out there betting billions of dollars on this year alone. March Madness brought in over $3 billion in bets. Most of those bets do not win. So I realized that there was a problem in 2021 when I saw Rattler throw that interception. And then with the explosion of online sports betting, the harassment towards these kids, college athletes, yeah, they're getting paid. Not all of them. That's just, a select few. But you miss a free throw, and they get harassed publicly and in their direct messages as well. And it's taken a severe toll on people. And having been a former Division I athlete, member of the Team USA bobsled team, and now as a public official, as a politician, there's a dehumanization aspect that plays into these collegiate athletes that I also see happening to me and my colleagues as politicians. People see us on TV. They think, oh, like they own us. A lot of people feel justified criticizing young adults because they're simply getting paid to deliver their talents for their schools. And they feel justified in this harassment. And it's become such an issue that the NCAA conducted its own study last year and showed that it's a huge problem. And a lot of that is tied to sports betting, specifically around March Madness. And there's some states that have been taking action. Some states have eliminated college sports betting from betting overall. And then also a lot of states have eliminated player prop betting, which we can talk about more. So I want to be able to use my platform as a legislator and a former athlete to rein in the laws here to protect young people, but then also, and specifically female athletes too, but then also make it to where I can give them advice on how to block out the trolls, how to stay focused on their game, and continue to win despite the chaos around them.
Did you vote yes to legalize sports betting last week when it was in the House, even though it didn't have any provisions addressing this?
I did vote yes because I am for regulated sports betting. I do think we need to ban player prop betting. I have spoken to the author who is open to that. And I have a meeting with Governor Stitt, who's also on the same page with me with banning player prop betting from sports betting.
Are you concerned though, because our neighbors around us have sports betting? Are you concerned that someone's going to place a prop bet on a player in Kansas or Arkansas, even if it's outlawed in Oklahoma?
I think that as a state representative, I should try to control what I can right here, and then I could lobby our federal delegation to encourage them to pass a national ban on player prop betting at the college level. There's a big difference between betting on random numbers, slot machines, and cards and human beings, especially young human beings. I mean, we're talking 18, 19, 20-year olds who are getting paid well, but at the same time, they're getting harassed, death threats, the worst you can imagine for simply missing a free throw or missing a catch. They're out there to play the game. Yes, they're getting compensated, but that doesn't give anyone the right to go into someone else's place of work and yell at them, criticize them, harass them, give them death threats. And so there's definitely ways we can rein it in while still keeping sports betting because it's a lot of people enjoy doing that. They find it entertaining, but unfortunately, some people have taken it way too far. And sports betting in general is a terrible. It's far more detrimental to people's lives than just a casino game. If you look at the NFL, any sports industry league, they do a really good job of creating stories, narratives. People feel invested. They feel like they know they can predict the outcomes of games. And then you take the ease and accessibility of being able to bet anytime they want on the most obscure sports all over the world at their fingertips on their phones. And you've got people who are having real addiction, real problems and while that's a separate issue, those people who are going into financial ruin because a 19-year-old misses a free throw, so unfortunately, a lot of them are taking that rage out on the players. And so it's a really big problem. But while we were discussing sports betting in particular, I saw it as an opportunity to protect young athletes, especially the female athletes.
So I would still be allowed to bet on March Madness, just not players in particular, is what you're proposing.
Yeah, that's right. One of the popular ways of betting are called parlays, and so like if you bet on 8 parlays, you could be like, what color is the Gatorade going to be that's dumped on the coach when they win? How many free throws are going to be missed? How long will the national anthem be? And I know that's separate from outside of a player's control, but it's an example of the most obscure bets that you can place on a athlete's every movement or lack thereof. And that is one of the reasons. So if you hit like 5 out of 8 of those and you win your parlay, if you get only 4 out of 8, you could lose your parlay and lose your money. And so it puts extra pressure on the student athlete. And so, yes, you could still be able to bet, but just not on those very specific actions that are tied to an individual's success or lack thereof.
Are you open to, let's let's pass sports betting. Let's get it across the finish line. And then next year you come in with a bill that says it is a specific crime to harass an athlete. Is that an avenue for you? Based off of a sports bet, I can't harass an athlete. Are you looking at that as well? If you can't get an amendment?
Yeah, that's correct. The legislative process is long and intentionally so. And obviously, you'd like to pass the very best bill, and in your opinion, you'd like to pass it immediately. But sometimes you have to play the long game. And as you mentioned, increased fines for people who harass a player's performance is something that other states have done as well. And I think that that's a smart move to do. I'll write both amendments banning player prop bets and increasing fines for harassment toward a player's performance. But if it doesn't get heard this session, then I'll just run it again next year. And it will take time to talk to my colleagues across the aisle. One of the big issues last year was protecting women's sports against the very, very, very few trans athletes that participate in collegiate sports. But it became a really big talking point. And so last week I had a great conversation with a colleague that said, and I mentioned, hey, if we really want to protect women in college sports, here's what we do. Let's ban player prop bets, and even better, eliminate college sports from sports betting altogether. And so, like, if we really want to protect female sports, and this is a great way to do it.
Here's my concern, and I'm almost out of time. I appreciate your time today. Here's my concern is that you voted on the legislative referendum that has already left out of the House. If that goes to a vote of the people, is it out of your hands now to change that legislative referendum? It seems like it's in the Senate's hands, and that's it. Is that right?
Yes, but it was acknowledged that it'll be coming back. There's going to be some changes to it, and then plus, the governor is, I believe, he's pretty set on banning player prop bets as well. So, but you're right, with a joint resolution, whether it begins in the House or Senate, doesn't need the governor's signature. But I do believe that bill will be coming back to the House for amendments.
Representative, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.